Slowly, an injured boy turned on the light switch. He looked at his reflection in the mirror with anger and ripped off the bandages covering his face. He cursed at Du Chang-soo, vowing to make him pay for his actions. In the past, at Taekon Middle School, a student blocked the restroom while operating his phone. Slapping sounds can be heard from outside the restroom. When other students tried to enter, the student at the door insulted them and directed them to use another restroom on a different floor. Inside the restroom, a group of students are bullying Choi Baek-ho, who stood timidly. They debated whether he had closed his eyes 9 times or more. Hwang Ji-tae, holding a shoe of Baek-ho, called him forward and asked him to perform well since it will be the last time, hitting him in the face with the shoe. Noticing Baek-ho closing his eyes again, the students at the back exchanged money for a bet they had made. The student who lost the bet questioned Baek-ho if he was purposely closing his eyes since he had done so 10 out of 10 times. Ji-tae suggested the reason for Baek-ho's actions was his strength, and if they disagreed, they could play another game. Baek-ho interrupted Ji-tae, asking him to stop as lunchtime was almost over and promised not to close his eyes the next time. Ji-tae curses him and throws away his shoe. He asks Baek-ho if he is crazy and wants to clarify that if he tries hard, he won't close his eyes the next time. When Baek-ho tells him not to misunderstand, Ji-tae asks if he is funny to be laughed at. Baek-ho says that cannot be true and smiles at him. One of the students who lost the bet tells Baek-ho to hit Ji-tae since he is not that strong and claims he will change the member if Ji-tae loses. Baek-ho says he cannot beat Ji-tae and asks him to stop saying such things since Ji-tae will get angry. This makes the guy very angry and steps forward, asking Ji-tae to move aside. He punches Baek-ho in the face when Baek-ho asks if he made a mistake. The punch made Baek-ho spill blood from his nose. Out of fear, Baek-ho asks him to stop hitting. He asks if they are friends of his just because they talked a little, for them to obey his command to stop hitting him. Turning back to Ji-tae, he tells him the reason Baek-ho is talking back to him is because he hasn't done anything to make him fear. He points out that students keep thinking that they're easy if they don't make themselves clear and proceed to open a closet which contains the cleaning kit for the restroom. He checks for something which is good and shows us a broom with a hard end. He calls Baek-ho and tells him to get hurt and swings the broom towards him with a great force, hitting him on his head. The force of the shot made him bump his head to the urinals behind him. Seeing this, the other students began to laugh at him for bumping into such a dirty area. As Baek-ho trembles with pain and fear, he points out the broom at Baek-ho and tells him to stand up without any delay. Baek-ho obeys him and stands his ground. The students behind them talk about the absurd thing he is doing just because he lost some money because of Baek-ho. He replies that he is not a devil and that this is a sort of education. He explains that they cannot talk back to them and defines a true education when he receives such beatings regularly. He begins to take another shot at Baek-ho with the broom and asks him to stay still while closing his eyes since he is going to finish him in one try. When the broom is near to Baek-ho, he thinks he is really done for if the broom hits again on his head and sees the other students from his red eye, laughing at the person hitting him and calling him devil. One of them asks who will buy them snacks if Baek-ho is dead. Baek-ho questions himself whether it is okay for him to die and quickly evades the broom at the last moment. The broom hits the water supply pipe on one of the urinals and it comes out due to the impact. Everyone is shocked to see him dodge the broom. This makes the guy hitting him angrier and starts to swing the broom towards him again, cursing and screaming why he'd avoid when he wanted to finish it in one blow. Baek-ho, with a lot of focus, recalls something he read in a book one day about soldiers. It said, when the soldiers feel the crisis of death in the war, suddenly time goes slowly for them and memories tangle up faintly and muscles all over their bodies explode with sudden bursts of energy. Baek-ho feels the same way in that situation and sprints towards him faster, screaming on top of his lungs and catches his neck and pins him down to the ground. Being in a rage, Baek-ho continues to hit every person in the restroom, kicking them and mopping the floor with them without giving any chance for them to hit back. After a brief amount of time, he comes back to his senses and wonders what has happened in the restroom. He is the only person standing in the room, while all the others are lying unconscious with bruises in different parts of the restroom. 2 years later, at present day Sinhyung High School, an angry figure walks past some students in the corridor of the school with a brick in his hand. The students recognize the fierce figure as Choi Baek-ho from Class 7. Looking at his face and the brick in his hand, they conclude that he is going to fight someone again. One of the students tells the others not to whisper loudly as he is going to hear it. Meanwhile in class 2, a student calls out to Chong-soo, who is sitting idly on the chair and asks what he is doing. He asks Chong-soo to come to the canteen along with him since Yang Geology is going to treat them. With a smile, gets up from his chair and the 3 students start to walk out. Suddenly, Baek-ho comes to the class, standing with an angry face. One of Chong-soo's friends wonders why he is here. Yang Geology asks what Baek-ho brought this time and sees the brick in his hand. He walks towards Baek-ho and questions his actions, telling him to get out of here. Baek-ho calls them minions and orders them to get out of his way. Before they can ask anything, he throws the brick in his hand towards Chong-soo, who stands behind the others. Chong-soo dodges the brick easily, which causes the brick to smash the glass window behind him and make it fall onto the ground. Baek-ho charges quickly towards Chong-soo with his fist, ready to punch him, screaming that he informed them not to band together. Chong-soo also charges forward and kicks Baek-ho with his knee on his face. After that, he gets on to the rear of Baek-ho, hitting him on his head from behind with his elbow. The hit made Baek-ho fly across the classroom, displacing all the benches and desks, finally crashing onto the ground. The other students in the class were shocked to see this fight. Baek-ho regains his posture and with blood all over his face and cheeks and asks Chong-soo if he is looking down on him again, threatening if he wants to die from his hands. Yang Geology says that he is so rude towards Chong-soo. Chong-soo stops him and says he will take care of him. Seeing Baek-ho lifting a chair to throw, Yang Geology shouts to inform Chong-soo. Baek-ho throws the chair onto Chong-soo, while saying that it's not enough to stick together. Baek-ho claims Chong-soo is still looking down on him. Chong-soo, seeing the chair thrown at him by Baek-ho, remains calm and catches the chair with one hand. Yang Geology and the others who are witnessing the scene are shocked to see him catch the chair. Only 0.1% of the population has a hero factor who are cool-headed, fast and overwhelming aura around them. Baek-ho closes the gap between them and tries to punch Chong-soo. Seeing this as an opening, Chong-soo quickly dodges his punch by going into the air towards his right, leaving him no chance to block, and hits Baek-ho on his head with the chair in his hand. Baek-ho glass on the ground and trembled with pain. When Baek-ho tries to get up, Chong-soo hits him again on the face with the chair to put him in his place. Onlookers in the classroom ponder the possibility of Baek-ho being killed by Chong-soo. Yang Geology says maybe Chong-soo won't kill him. With a cold face, Chong-soo stops beating Baek-ho and throws the broken chair away. He turns towards his classmates and questions if they can go to the cafeteria now, with a smiling face. Yang Geology welcomes him and says the treat is on him. Meanwhile, Baek-ho, who is lying near the broken glass pieces, picks one in his hand and stands up. Yang Geology tells Chong-soo to look at Baek-ho. Both of them stand face to face. Chong-soo tells Baek-ho that he is out of his mind and questions him if he is going to stab him with the glass piece. Baek-ho stands silent, not knowing what to answer. Chong-soo tells him to do it. Humans who are in the 0.1% with hero factors are not only cool-headed, fast and overwhelming but also don't know fear. So, everyone prays that such a man should be on the side of good. Baek-ho advances towards Chong-soo to stab him. When Baek-ho is right about to stab Chong-soo, he evades and punches Baek-ho on his neck. The shock Baek-ho felt made him lose the glass piece from his hand and stands like a state with the pain. Chong-soo looks down at him with an evil smirk. Baek-ho falls on the floor after becoming unconscious. The other students wonder if he is dead and question if he was breathing. After a brief moment, he regains his consciousness and stands up for another fight with Chong-soo. He screams that it hurts and threatens Chong-soo, while cursing him. Suddenly his throat starts to hurt, making him unable to talk. Even in such a situation, he asks the whereabouts of Chong-soo to the other students in the class. They inform him that Chong-soo went to the cafeteria. Baek-ho places his hand on his neck to ease the pain and finds a glass piece on his palm. He squeezes his hand in anger and decides to beat him first, and thinks about the reason he cannot beat him. He wonders who Chong-soo actually is. Meanwhile, at the cafeteria, Chong-soo asks his friends to discuss Choi Baek-ho and questions his existence. One of them says that he attacked Chong-soo with a broken glass, which is crazy. They claim if it weren't for Chong-soo as his opponent, others would have died by Baek-ho's hands. With a serious look on his face, Chong-soo asked how many times was it that Baek-ho attacked him. One of his friends claims it has been 10 times since their freshman year. Another one says Baek Ho might forget that he lost since he faints every time, and praises for his efforts. Yang Geology claims Baek Ho keeps on doing that since he just keeps looking at him, and asks if they visit him to educate him properly. Yang Geology asks Cheon Man about the class which Baek Ho is in, to which he thinks it is class 7. Chong Soo claims Baek Ho is not the one to quit just because he was hit, which they have experienced by looking at him. Chong Soo continues to say, if Baek Ho is going to quit, then he wouldn't have come to them 10 times. He asks Cheon Man to find out what is wrong with Baek Ho. In class 7, a group of students are building another student. They poured the milk on him because he brought white milk instead of strawberry milk. One of them says that he doesn't wash himself anyway, and asks him to use the opportunity to wash himself. Seeing him giggle, one of them gets angry and questions if he is joking for him to laugh. They ask if he wants to get a true education, to which he apologizes repeatedly. The other students ask him to continue the act of washing himself, to which he starts to imitate a person who is washing his face. They ask him to take a shower since he had to take one later, and the student starts to imitate taking a shower. Just when they are trying to make more fun of him, Baek Ho walks in and questions the group's actions. They try to manage the situation. One of them whispers that he is in a bad mood since he was beaten by Chong Soo. Another faces Baek Ho and says that he doesn't take a bath that often, and he could get sick if he is not clean, so they were teaching him a lesson. Baek Ho quickly punches him in the face for bullying a student. The other students claim that he did it himself and they are just watching him. Baek Ho starts to walk towards the person getting bullied and walks past the other students. Baek Ho turns back and asks the person he hit earlier to wash his face since something is wrong with it. He cursed them and warned everyone not to touch Jong Baek, the student who is getting bullied, or else they have to pay with their life. The same evening, Jong Baek calls Baek Ho while he is walking down the corridor and offers him a strawberry milk with a great smile on his face. Baek Ho, with the same vexed face, asks what it is. Jong Baek says he is thankful to him for helping him in the last incident. Baek Ho kicks away the milk carton from his hands, which shocks him and the others who are watching them. With a slight shiver, Jong Baek says he will buy him something else if he doesn't like strawberry milk. Baek Ho says he is more disgusted with him than the others and tells him not to pretend and walks away. Jong Baek stood still without saying anything. Chong Soo along with Cheon Man and Yang Geology are walking home. Cheon Man says that he looked into Baek Ho from a person who went to the same middle school as him. Cheon Man claims Baek Ho has had a turbulent life and tells them to listen to this story like they're watching an American drama. Cheon Man starts the story by labeling Baek Ho's childhood as a loser, which shocked the other two. Cheon Man asked if they knew Taechon Middle School, which was the school of bullies and the school where only the song survived. Baek Ho, being the smallest and shortest student, became a good target for school bullies. He naturally became an object of harassment and neglect. One day, Baek Ho tried to change his position, but he went against the wrong opponent, who was a well-known school bully. Cheon Man continues to say about the change in nature is his position into an object of disregard, blatant violence and extortion. Baek Ho tried to fight against him once but was defeated easily, and then became a hitting target for the bullies. Cheon Man thinks it is where his excellent tenacity was created. In his senior year at the junior high school, Baek Ho awoke one day and knocked down 5 bullies at once, changing his position himself. Chong Soo couldn't believe he took down 5 people at a time. Cheon Man justifies that he is as strong as Chong Soo, and he'd probably beat Yang Geology. Cheon Man resumes the narration and tells them, since the day of his awakening, Baek Ho has been beating all the bullies and telling them not to stick together. Chong Soo recalls Baek Ho says the same thing to them, and wonders if he has become an apostle of justice who defeats the bullies. Cheon Man clarifies that he often attacked the victims who tried to offer their thanks to him. Yang Geology claims he is not consistent and questions his condition, which might get damaged after getting hit. Chong Soo concludes that Baek Ho is a sick person and they should not hate sick people. He decides to take care of him with love from that moment onwards. Yang Geology questions his decision since he had hit him like he was killing Baek Ho with the chair. At the same time, Baek Ho, who was walking to his home, comes across an alley where he sees 3 high school students puffing on cigarettes. Baek Ho stares at them with a serious look. One of the students recognized his uniform, which is of Sin Hyung High School. When they asked Baek Ho the reason for his looks, he took off his bag. One of them threatens Baek Ho because he wants to fight with him. The other student beside him tells Baek Ho not to mess up with him, since he is Sin Myung-sik's younger brother. Baek Ho throws his bag onto the little brother of Sin Myung. After taking a hit from his bag, he screams at Baek Ho if he has a death wish. Baek Ho orders them not to stick together since he wants to kill him. They decide to beat Baek Ho up. Baek Ho thinks this is going to be fun, since he is Sin Myung-sik's younger brother. Sin Myung-sik's younger brother orders the other two beside him to get rid of Baek Ho. One of them advances towards Baek Ho and tries to punch him while saying Myung-sik doesn't even know him and that he is picking a fight. Baek Ho watches the punch reach him and takes it head on using his head, which breaks the person's wrist. The other person quickly approaches him and gives a right cut to Baek Ho. Baek Ho, while taking the impact from the punch, grabs the person's neck with his left hand, while he asks if Baek Ho is looking down on Tae Sung-hai. Baek Ho punches him so hard that he leaps backwards, spilling blood from his nose. He claims Tae Sung-hai is just a gangster school and concludes Tae Sung-hai is not so great after looking at them and they only trust on some people to play tricks. Sin Myung-sik's younger brother from behind swings a wooden stick on Baek Ho and screams at him to die. The stick breaks after hitting his head. Baek Ho goes into his awakened mode after blood drops from his head. He beats the hell out of him and continues to punch his face till one of them pleads Baek Ho to stop hitting him or else he will die. He comes to his senses and sees his face which has swollen due to his beating. Baek Ho warns them not to stick together in the future. He picks up his bag and thinks he was too naive that there's no need for him to fight versus Chong-soo who is like a monster. Baek Ho turns back and questions the strength of his brother, Sin Myung-sik. While trying to stand up, he says he was informed about him before the fight started and asks if he feels he had messed up. He continues to say that his older brother Sin Myung-sik is the leader of Tae Sung-hai and a gangster living in Daesung Group, and even the leader of Baek Ho's school Kong Taek-bong is under his brother in the organization. He continues to say that there is no use to regret now since his brother will find him tomorrow and pay back multiple times. Baek Ho says he doesn't care about a gangster or anybody and calls his brother a loser. Confused on how to respond, he questions Baek Ho if he wants to die while addressing him as Sir. Baek Ho orders him to shut his mouth and tells him to inform his brother to find him if he has any problem and introduce himself as Do Chong-soo, a second-year student in Sinhyung High. The following day, at Sinhyung High, two students in the corridor laugh at Baek Ho for having a big band-aid on the back of his head. He turns back and asks if they are talking about him. They felt a chill under their spine after they knew it was actually Baek Ho. When they apologize, he warns them not to go around in groups and says they are dead if he finds out there's one more person with them. They let out a big sigh after he left. Baek Ho thinks he has a very important situation ahead and decides not to waste his energy. He recalls the words of Sin Myung-sik's younger brother that his brother will come and pay him back multiple times for what he did. He thinks if his brother is really Sin Myung-sik, then it won't take a lot of time and decides to beat him up after loosening up from other situations. Baek Ho suddenly encounters Young Jin-soo, the second in for the third year. He wonders why the third years have come to the second-year classroom. Young Jin walla into class 2 and sees Chong-soo laughing. He catches a student's head and bangs him to the desk, while calling out Chong-soo and cursing him. Chong-soo walks to confront him while the other students beside the fallen student help him to get up. With an angry expression, Young Jin questions what he was doing. Young Jin-soo calls Chong-soo to come forward while cursing him. Young Geology gets frustrated with the senior's behavior and actions. Chong-soo stops Young Geology and says it is not the time and to stay calm. Chong-soo walks towards him and questions his actions. Young Jin-soo gives a tight slap and asks what he was doing back then. Young Geology gets more frustrated and is about to move forward but gets stopped by his friend Cheon Man, who tells him to listen to Chong-soo. Young Jin-soo says it's because he beat up the brother of Tae Sung-hai Sin Myung-sik. Taek-bong is in trouble. He asks if Chong-soo's actions were on purpose, to make trouble for his seniors. Listening to all this, Chong-soo is surprised enough to say anything. When Young Jin-soo asks him to say something, Chong-soo bows in front of him in apology for his actions and for making them come to him because of this which has caused trouble for the seniors. Chong-soo declares that he will deal with the problem himself and not let any seniors get into trouble anymore. Young Jin-soo says he understood and asks him to raise his head. Jin-soo claims he knew that Chang-soo would cause trouble one day, but not of this kind. He orders him to take some hits from the kids sent here from Taesung-hai, and in the meanwhile, he'd out some good words for Taekbong, to move it over quietly. When Chang-soo thanks him, he asks him to do better and leaves. Baek-ho sees the seniors in the corridor and thinks that their years have started to move within a day, and he thought of them as a joke yesterday. Baek-ho thinks of waiting for the events to unfold for Chang-soo. Suddenly, Cheon-man calls Baek-ho from behind and asks if something good is happening for him to be that excited. Baek-ho looks back to see Cheon-man and tells him not to mess with him, calling him a mere underling of Chang-soo. Cheon-man tells him to stop taking nonsense and asks him to come somewhere else to have a talk with him. Baek-ho looks seriously at him. Meanwhile, in Class 2, Yang Geology confronts Chang-soo for apologizing for something he didn't do and asks the reason, since those devotees are just picking him up for his faults. Yang Geology suggests gathering their people and crushing them once and for all at the rooftop since he can't let it slide. Chang-soo agrees that it is an unfair matter. When Yang Geology asks the reason, Chang-soo says he thinks Kang Taekbong will counter back. At the same time, on the rooftop of the school, a group of seniors along with Young Jin-soo arrive to see Kang Taekbong, who is sitting in a chair with nuts in his hand. Taekbong questions Young Jin-soo if he went to see Do Chang-soo. Young Jin-soo tells him while sweating that he had already informed Chang-soo about the matter, so he no longer needs to be concerned. Hearing this, Kang Taekbong crushes the nuts in his hand and becomes angry because he was told not to worry. He calls Young Jin as sloppy even though he is the number 2 in the school, and because of that he is being played by those second years. Jin-soo apologizes and says he will perform better in the future. Kang Taek tells him to speak properly, calling him pighead. On the same day, near the storehouse at school, Baek-ho drops his bag aside and asks Cheon-man if he wants to say something to him or have a fight. Cheon-man says he isn't the type of person to use his body. Baek-ho asks if he wants to have a verbal fight with him, to which Cheon-man doesn't answer. Cheon-man accuses Baek-ho for selling Chang-soo's name and tells him not to lie since he saw Baek-ho having fun from outside the class when Chang-soo is getting beaten up by the seniors today. Cheon-man warns him not to use Chang-soo's name any further and claims that he can never win against Chang-soo. Baek-ho gets irritated by his claim and advances towards him to punch him. Cheon-man quickly evades his punch and says that he isn't the type of person who uses his body more. He asks him not to swing his arm and to use his head to talk things out, and says it is the reason why he is not a match against Chang-soo. Baek-ho claims Cheon-man is having fun since he managed to avoid his punch once and says that he knows how to run his mouth, being Do Chang-soo's servant. Cheon-man quickly grabs him by his arm and turns him upside down, pinning him on the ground. Cheon-man clarified that he is not his servant and offers to help Baek-ho to win against Chang-soo. Baek-ho stands up asking if he meant what he said and questions his plans. Cheon-man asks if he is thinking of it as a trick and clarifies about the confidence in the fighting skill of Baek-ho but cannot seem to understand that he cannot win once out of 10 fights. He concludes that Chang-soo is overwhelmingly stronger than him and Baek-ho only had his tenacity, while Chang-soo has the guts, strength and skills and is a monster with a brain. Cheon-man's words make Baek-ho angry and walks back towards the broomsticks. He breaks one of them and picks up the broken stick, points towards Cheon-man and says that he talks too much, which is annoying. Baek-ho orders him to come straight to the point about the way to win against Chang-soo. Baek-ho declares he will beat up Cheon-man if he isn't satisfied with the answer given by him, after all this taking and throwing him on the ground. Cheon-man says he is not a person who uses his body and says he cannot win against Baek-ho unless he lets his guard down and admits that Baek-ho is really strong, who has no fear to challenge him again and again, the vile with no methods, and is like a reckless running mad dog. Cheon-man says he cannot face people like him since he is going to be overwhelmed by their spirit, but Chang-soo is on a different level than such ordinary guys. Cheon-man says Baek-ho will be defeated completely, no matter where and how he charges at Chang-soo. Being curious about something, he wants to know before he gives him the way and asks about why Baek-ho is desperate to go against Chang-soo. When Cheon-man asks if he wants to be the leader of second years, Baek-ho says yes. Cheon-man asks a follow-up question. If he wants to fight against the third years and become the school leader, Baek-ho makes a blank face. Cheon-man says he expected him to be someone who doesn't think. Cheon Man says Baek Ho has to gather the body if he wants to become the head and not simply rush alone. Cheon Man says it is a relief for him that Baek Ho knew the order to go against who first, and calls him a crazy dog with snapped leash and rushed into, just because he is annoyed. Baek Ho gets frustrated and shows him his fists, telling him to shut his mouth and asks if he knew enough about him. Cheon Man confirms that he is really a crazy dog by seeing how he got worked up now. Cheon Man says he is obvious to read and tells Baek Ho the only option to win against Chong Su is to look far ahead, unlike Baek Ho who only sees the enemy in front of him. So, Baek Ho has to look at the same place as Chong Su and to the point where he can entrust Baek Ho. Making Chong Su trust Baek Ho completely, he can find a moment where Chong Su is not bothered by him, and that is the moment he can utilize to backstab him without any hesitation, knocking him off. Cheon Man says this is the only way for him to win against Chong Su and asks if he wants to try it. After some time, on the school's rooftop, Young Jin Soo is sitting at a place and sulking while he recalls the comments of Kong Taek previously. A transfer student keeps on smiling at him, which is observed by another third year. He asks the transfer student if he doesn't know how to read the room. The transfer student says he finds it funny that the school's second is sulking like that just for one word. The third-year student gets irritated and threatens him while catching his collar. He asks him to read the room since it's already been more than a month since he joined the school. He wonders what Taek Bong sees in him to let him into the group and tells him to do well before he rips off his mouth. The transfer student shows his teeth with braces and asks him to rip it off if he feels confident. The transfer student claims that the number 3 guy only knows how to whisper in his mouth and continues to poke him further. He gets angry and swings his fist at the transfer student, which he evades falling back and kicks his face right at the same moment from below, and does a backflip. The transfer student asks why he thinks Taek Bong let him in. He then answers his question that he is strong and calls him a loser among the number that he has seen. The transfer student asks the number 3rd to better be on guard and starts to kick him, which he blocks with some difficulty. He continues to kick him and praises him for doing well, and claims he has to go for a teeth implant and not braces once he lowers his guard down. Kong Taek Bong thinks Yu Bai Cheol, the transfer student, is a crazy one. While Bai Cheol continues to kick him, Young Jin Soo interferes and tells him to stop before he really dies. Bai Cheol turns back to see Young Jin Soo's serious face and gets excited. Bai Cheol calls him a pig head and tells him to come at him if he is confident. When Young Jin asks if he has no fear, Bai Cheol calls him a mouth fighter and tells him to come at him. Kong Raek Bong is excited to see the situation unfold, but they are interrupted by a student who rushed to the rooftop to report Taek Bong that they are in trouble. Taek Bong asks what has happened. He says Taesung High School students are gathered at their school gate. Listening to this, everyone's face turns serious. Taesung High School with Sin Myung's 6 younger brother as the anchor waiting outside the school's gate. He shouts for Du Chong Soo to come out. Meanwhile, the seniors gather to see 20 people who have come, mostly from the 1st and 2nd years. One of them claims that 3 students from Taesung High came here to take a hold of our school. He asks Taek Bong if he can take some students and rush against them. Taek Bong clarifies that if they want to take hold of our school, then Sin Myung Sik will have to come personally. He realizes he is going overboard and Taek Bong commands them to stay still and not make the problem any bigger. Taek Bong decides to watch them since Young Jin said he solved it well. Meanwhile, in Class 7 where Baek Ho belongs, everyone except for him gathered towards the windows to see the group of Taesung High students at the gate. When one of them claims they have come for Du Chong Soo, they wouldn't believe that a person like him is involved with people like him since he is not a gangster. Suddenly, Cheon Man asks Baek Ho what he will do since it had happened, calling him a gangster. Baek Ho recalls his previous conversation with Cheon Man, where his only way to win over Chong Soo is to win his trust and backstab him. Baek Ho asks if he thinks of him as a moron since Cheon Man expects him to believe the words of one of the underlings of Chong Soo. Cheon Man clarifies that he also knew after fighting with him that Baek Ho will never be able to win against him alone. Cheon Man says they were friends since middle school and after watching him over these years, he concludes that Chong Soo never once failed to accomplish his goal, whether it is exercising, fighting, and even studying. Chong Soo always reaches the standards and no matter how big the obstacles are in his way. He compares Chong Soo to a bulldozer and Baek Ho a mad dog. He compares the matching between Baek Ho and Chong Soo like a match between a fool and an artificial intelligence. Even after this, He thinks both of them are the same people. Cheon Man sometimes thinks that Chang Su might put him in trouble for pushing ahead without him knowing. He concluded that if he were in his situation, then he'd get behind Chang Su and become the break of him. Baek Ho stands up to him and says he will sort out well, so he asks him to stop pestering him. Baek Ho says to Cheon Man if he is that worried about Chang Su, then he should have stopped being his servant and stopped him earlier. Cheon Man says he is not a servant to Chang Su. Baek Ho says he'll do what Cheon Man has asked and threatens him if he finds out something which he plans for later on. Baek Ho walks towards the gate and thinks that he doesn't care about being a break to Chang Su, as long as he can stab him behind his back as soon as possible. He wonders about the identity of Chang Su, and recalling the actions of his other classmates, he thinks he is some kind of cult leader and also wonders about Cheon Man being nice to Chang Su. Sin Myung-sik's younger brother sees Baek Ho and smiles. Baek Ho looks at him and wonders what's wrong with him since he has more wounds than before. He recalls telling him not to be in groups. Baek Ho thinks of stepping on them. Chang Su appears at his rear and questions if he has that much power to do such a thing. From his speculation, Chang Su states that he can take down 3 to 5 people if he performs well. He asks him to step aside since he might get hurt if he is still there. Baek Ho turns to him and asks if he is out of his mind since he was the one who used his name. Chang Su says he knew about it and since this is now his business, he asks Baek Ho to step aside. Chang Su walks towards them and shouts at the gang, calling them Taesung minions and announces that he is Du Chang Su. The ones who came to beat Chang Su ot confused after this announcement and the seniors of their school are wondering what they are doing. Baek Ho asks Chang Su if he is planning to ridicule him and asks if he thinks he will show his thanks to him after this. Chang Su states that Baek Ho might get hurt if he stood here any longer. Baek Ho gets irritated and tries to punch Chang Su, but he evades easily and gives a low kick to Baek Ho, making him fall on the ground. Chang Su announces to the Taesung guys that this is Kong Take Bong area and they have dared to act here. He asks if Sin Myung-sik has ordered them to come here. The younger brother along with the others plan to take down Chang Su first since they have to take down both of them. After listening to the commotion, Kong Take Bong thinks of Chang Su as a sly person for using his name. The students from Taesung High come running towards Chang Su. Cheon Man along with Yang Geology and his friends are running in the corridor while telling everyone to move aside. Baek Ho looks at Chang Su, who is about to fight the running crowd. Chang Su punches the students coming towards him. Chang Su continues to hit multiple persons one after the other. He evades the punches of everyone and hits them harder, alternating with fists and kicks. Suddenly, a big figure comes towards Chang Su while saying that he can fight while cursing him. The others start cheering him and calling the wrestling moon. They claim it's over for Chang Su once he gets caught by him since he is like a monster with a height of over 190 centimeters. Chang Su kicks the incoming person on his chin and knocks him out, which shocks everyone. The fight continues where Chang Su hits one of them on his neck and starts to dodge the next opponent's wooden stick, punching him on his torso before he can hit Chang Su. He knocks the next 3 guys with a single punch to their faces. After finishing everyone, he walks towards the remaining members. Fear started to fill in everybody that's left. They start to whisper about his strength and compare him to Cheon Su, the leader of Taesung's second years, who is standing behind them and listening to their whispers. Baek Ho was amazed to see Chang Su wipe around 10 people in a flash, and this is not like a dogfight between school kids. Baek Ho observes the fast and precise way of knocking everyone, and thinks he is going easy against him all this time. Baek Ho now realizes he has been fighting such a monster all this time. Han Cheon Su suddenly shouts at everyone for not fighting properly and cannot even go up against one person. He questions them, asking what will Myung-sik do to them if they go back to school in this manner, and asks if Chang Su is scarier than Myung-sik. Listening to him, everyone stands up with their weapons. Cheon Su advises everyone to gang up on him properly and take him down this time. Baek Ho wonders about the power of the name Sin Myung-sik since everyone stood up at his name. Baek Ho feels that Sin Myung-sik is a great person since they stood up and even changed the atmosphere around them, even with a crazy person like Du Chang Su ahead of them. He thinks Chang Su won't be able to deal with this situation this time and plans to step ahead, recalling Cheon Man's advice to look at the same place as Chang Su. When Baek Ho was about to step up, a group of students ran towards Chang Su and surrounded him to help counter the Taesung High students. Taesung students were amazed to see around 50 students at the spot. Yang Geology asks Chang Su if he is alright, to which he replies he is and asks him why he came along with the first years. Cheon Man replies they have come to help him and tells Chang Su that he would have told them beforehand if he plans to cause trouble. Yang Geology spots a familiar person and calls Han Cheon Su. Cheon Su gets frustrated to see him here since they are short in numbers now, but they have to deal with Du Chang Su and even Li Yang Geology. Yun Geology asks how he has been and is a little surprised to see him grow tall. Cheon Su thought he had to help them deal only with Chang Su, but more and more students keep coming out. Han Cheon Su walks forward and questions Yang Geology if he is crazy and says he thought that the talks with Kang Taek-bong went well, but realizes it is not the case. Chan Hyun Su claims right at this moment their school is like declaring war towards Taesung and decides to go back for today since the discussion was different today. He asks if they can handle everything that will happen in the future. Yang Geology wonders if Han Cheon Su is threatening him. Du Chang Su tells them to do according to Han Cheon Su, which is to stop for today. Cheon Su tells them to be prepared for the next time and turns back to Jong Sik, the younger brother of Sin Myung Sik, to tell him that the situation has become big and advises them to retreat for now. After everyone leaves, Baek Ho wonders if this situation has ended here and looks up to see Chang Su making eye contact with him. Chang Su asks Baek Ho if he doesn't like people who go around in groups and asks him to accompany him. When Baek Ho questions where to, Chang Su names Kang Taek-bong and says to defeat him. Chang Su gives him his hand to help Baek Ho stand up. Seeing the smile on Chang Su's mean face creeped out Baek Ho. Kang Taek-bong walks towards the group of second and first years who were standing in the ground after the students from Taesung High left. Both sides exchange serious looks for a brief moment, without any words. Baek Ho thinks about Kang Taek-bong, who is their school's leader and an active gangster in the organization. He recalls about Kang Taek-bong, who would conquer the school in his second year itself and was an unbeatable monster who has the strength, speed, and skills. He thinks Chang Su is going against such an interesting person and decides to throw the first punch if they were going to cause a ruckus now and walks forward. Chang Su catches his head and suddenly bows along with Baek Ho in front of Kang Taek-bong and apologizes since he has planned to get a few hits himself and end the situation there itself, and explains that he was worked up since they brought up his name. Every student behind Chang Su bows along with him for the apology. Seeing this, Young Jin Su tries to interfere and says that he advised him not to make the problem bigger. Kang Taek-bong stops Young Jin and says that they did a good job and asks them to go inside along with the others. Everyone who was bowing offers their thanks to him while he walks away and orders his men to come along with him. Chang Su gives a weird smile after this and turns back to the second and first years and tells them to get back inside just as Kang Taek-bong has ordered. The first years are getting excited on Chang Su giving orders, which is making him creep out. Baek Ho asks Chang Su what is wrong with him since he said that they are going to take down Kang Taek-bong and asks why did he bow to him now. Chang Su says it is not the time now since Kang Taek-bong is not an opponent who you can pick a fight rashly against, and tells Baek Ho to wait for the right time to capture him and asks if he is going to do it with him while smiling at Baek Ho. Baek Ho gets embarrassed and asks if he is confessing his love to him and calls him a stupid cult leader while walking away. Chang Su asks what he was saying and tells him to do it together. When Baek Ho says he doesn't know anything, Chang Su claims he is embarrassed and he also has a cute side of him. Cheon Man also says that he is cute, but Yang Geology still has a serious face. Later that evening, at the nightclub, Kang Taek-bong is waiting outside when a bald-headed person approaches him and tells that the guys they have sent because of one's younger brother problem were beaten up and sent away. He asks if Taek-bong is ignoring the rank in the organization, to which Kang Taek-bong remains silent. He curses Taek-bong and asks what he was doing so shamelessly. Kang Taek-bong questions why he sent them to the school and cause a ruckus. When he says Kang Taek-bong is crossing his line, he replies that is what actually happened. The person tries to provoke him further, but Kang Taek-bong remains silent with his guard up. He realizes that is what happened and starts to walk away from him. He gives a side eye to Kang Taek-bong and warns he has to give up something of his if he gets caught in a ruckus once again. Kang Taek-bong gives a serious look towards him. Around the same time, Baek Ho is walking down the alley and recalling the smiling face of Du Chang Su and thinks that he is good at spitting cringy words with such expressions and labeling him a crazy cult leader. He shifts his thoughts to Kang Taek-bong, who is great as he heard, and calls Chang Su as an artificial intelligence fighting machine since he can fight against Kang Taek-bong if they confront each other. He remembers the advice of Cheon Man and decides to pin down Chong Su when that happens. Suddenly a hand reaches Baek Ho from behind and grabs him by his neck. Just when he was about to turn around to see, the person who caught him threw him towards a shutter of a closed area. Baek Ho, after the impact, turns around to see which crazy bastard did it and realizes it was Yang Geology. Yang Geology, with an angry face, says that he hates annoying people like him and doesn't know how he coaxed Chong Su and Cheon Man into believing him. Yang Geology says he heard about his past, that he was a shuttle boy in his middle school, and warns Baek Ho not to go far. Baek Ho starts to lose his cool. Around the same time, Cheon Man and Chong Su were walking home. Cheon Man says he is really in trouble and despises the situation. When Chong Su asked about his frustration, he replied Chong Su was the reason for his frustration. Cheon Man questions why he would provoke Kong Take Bong. Chong Su asks if he is scared while smiling at him. Cheon Man claims he is annoyed by the rank in the organization since he was pushed down by someone as Sin Myong Sik, who is the same age as him. He couldn't believe someone like Sin Myong turned like that and says he must be a lot of trouble for Kong Take Bong. Chong Su claims that is what he planned for. In the same smiling face which irritates Cheon Man says Kong Take Bong is already targeting him and asks what good will it be for him to even do such schemes against him. Cheon Man says there is no guarantee that he will win face to face with Kong Take Bong and the third years will beat up him if they face them. Chong Su says that is the reason he did it, as their collective strength itself is not enough. His plan was to use Sin Myong Sik and drive Kong Take Bong to a corner, and when it happens, they will have a chance to take down those third years. Cheon Man asks if he can wait till the seniors graduate since Kong Take Bong must have realized it after seeing the second and first years gathered together. The real reason he didn't hit Chong Su earlier is because he thought of the aftermath, and just by looking at Kong Take Bong, he can say that he doesn't only have fist but is also quick at calculating. According to the expectations of Cheon Man, he says they cannot beat him and asks Chong Su to endure for a few months until they graduate. Chong Su denies his advice and says he will have to crush him before his graduation at any cost. When Cheon Man says why he is willing to take such a risk, Chong Su explains that it will be harder for them to get hold of him after he graduates. Cheon Man calls him stubborn and asks what he will become later on, to which he responds that he doesn't know and questions about the whereabouts of Yang Geology. Around the same time, at another place, Baek Ho advances towards Yang Geology and swings his right fist very fast, but Yang Geology blocks him with difficulty and thinks that he is quite quick in his movements. Baek Ho shifts to his left and punches his face, which is a direct hit. He then continues to punch his torso very hard and says Yang Geology is just a slave of Chong Su, so what if he is a shuttle boy? Baek Ho continues to throw several punches at him, which Yang Geology tries to block and is frustrated at him. Yang Geology finds an opening and kicks Baek Ho on his torso, making him fly back to some distance. Baek Ho recovers from it, and after experiencing his strength, he is amazed that it is a lot more than Chong Su. Yang Geology provokes him by saying his punches were lighter since he was the shuttle boy. Baek Ho falls into his trap and advances towards him to deliver a punch, but Yang Geology evades him easily since Baek Ho's movements got bigger as he expected. Yang Geology punches his face, making him fall back due to the impact, and he starts to bleed from his nose. Baek Ho calls him a sly and sneaky bastard, to which he replies it is strategy. Yang Geology tackles him and pins him on the ground and chokes him. When Baek Ho struggles, he says there is no use for him to struggle since he is completely locked. Baek Ho's mind starts to haze due to the choking and thinks it is embarrassing for him to lose to someone who is like a servant to Chong Su and begins to pinch Yang Geology's legs. Yang Geology loses his arms around Baek Ho due to the sudden pinch from him. Taking this as a chance, he bites his arm and escapes from the chokehold. Yang Geology cries and claims he is a sly person, to which Baek Ho repeats the same words which Yang Geology has said previously and sprints towards him. Poking his eyes, Yang Geology is on his knees, shouting with pain from his eyes. Baek Ho says it is not over yet and gives him a straight punch to his face, knocking him out cold on the ground. Baek Ho sees him and gives an evil smile. The next day, Du Chong Su and Cheon Man are in their class, waiting for Yang Geology. Cheon Man says Yang Geology hasn't even picked up his call the previous day and still didn't reach school today. Chong Su claims Yang Geology might have overslept. At the same moment, a voice calls for Chong Su, to which they were shocked to see Kong Take Bong along with some third-year seniors in their classroom. Kong Taek-bong walks towards Chong-soo when he asks what is the matter at this early in the morning. Kong Taek-bong orders Chong-soo to beat the life out of Taesung-hai students, to which Cheon-man and Chong-soo get shocked. Yang Geology walks in the corridor while cursing Baek-ho and thinking about the fight with him yesterday. After opening his eyes, Yang Geology is taped to a wall by Baek-ho. Baek-ho asks him how he feels to be tied up and says that he looks like an outcast in this situation. Yang Geology screams at him to release and struggles to take the tape off. Baek-ho advises not to struggle since it will be much harder to remove it since he has experienced it before. Baek-ho questions what was the reason for him to follow and if Chong-soo asked him to do. Yang Geology, while struggling, says that it is his neighborhood and that he is not following him. Baek-ho says that is fine if he didn't ask since he got curious on what he was going to do, even though he didn't like the thought of getting along with him. He asks him to take care of Chong-soo from beside while pretending to be on his side since he saw both Chong-soo and Kiam-man won't have any problem having him. He asks him to lay low since he lost to him, to which Yang Geology denies and says that he is a sly person who has pinched, bite and poked his eyes. Baek-ho provokes him and Yang Geology continues to deny that he lost while struggling to get out of the restraints. Baek-ho suddenly says he feels like taking a piss on the street and opens his zipper and goes near Yang Geology, who is shocked and continues to say not to do such a thing. Baek-ho asks again if he lost to him, to which Yang Geology cries and accepts that he is lost and asks him to remove it and move back. Baek-ho immediately takes out his phone and asks him to repeat the words so he can record for evidence and will release him afterwards. Baek-ho suddenly plays the video he recorded the previous day behind him. He gets furious listening to it and turns back to see Baek-ho playing the video. He asks why he is playing that when he is going to keep it. Baek-ho says the video is funny when Yang Geology tries to delete the video. Yang Geology says that he didn't even let him go after recording the video and cries asking what is funny in that. Baek-ho says he doesn't care if he deletes it since it was already backed up and sees Kong Taek-bong. Yang Geology asks why he was talking about Kong Taek-bong and asks him to stop the argument and delete it. Suddenly, Young Jin-soo puts a hand on his shoulder and calls him Sushi Head. Yang Geology turns back to see the top brass of the third-year students behind him along with Kong Taek-bong. When Young Jin-soo threatens Yang Geology, Kong Taek-bong stops him and tells him not to hurt his morale since they were about to go to war. Kong Taek-bong tells them to try their best and walks away along with the other students. Both Baek-ho and Yang Geology didn't know what they were saying. They reach Class 2 where Chong-soo and Cheon-man are present. Baek-ho and Yang Geology were confused on why they were going to take on Taesung students after they were briefed about the situation. When they ask why, Cheon-man explains that Kong Taek-bong is in trouble and Taesung-hai is not like any normal school since more than 80% of the students are in the organization besides the leader Sin Myung-sik, who was disqualified as an athlete due to a violence case. Cheon-man says he never once lost first place in judo. Even Kong Taek-bong might have difficulty to win against him face to face. He claims there is a huge gap in skills and strength. It will be harder to win even if the third years get involved. He turns to Chong-soo and says that Kong Taek-bong is basically asking them to go to them and die. Baek-ho asks if they can ignore him, to which Cheon-man says that they cannot since Kong Taek-bong personally ordered them to do so, and fighting the third years is the worst case scenario since even if they gather all the first and second year, they will fall short of the third years. So he concludes that going all out against Taesung-hai is their only option as they ordered. Since they got in between them, if Sin Myung-sik takes responsibility for the event as higher up in the organization, Kong Taek-bong will pin the blame on Chong-soo and eventually, a small wing will be formed in this division. Chong-soo says it is not the fault of Baek-ho since he was the one who stirred up the situation and asks them to stop talking about that and gather as many people as possible to go with him tomorrow. When Cheon-man asks if he has a plan, Chong-soo says they will crush Taesung-hai at once since it has come to this. Everyone gets shocked and sweats after listening to his statement.